Can you hear me in the back? Yes. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name is Louis Trujillo. I'm the mayor of Las Vegas, and I wanted to have a town hall meeting just to give an update on where we are as far as our healing process is going and how fast we're getting there and everything else. I had invited a bunch of people to be on the panel to answer some very important questions and hopefully give you some good information. There's representation from FEMA. Angela, raise your hand. All right.
The claims office.
The claims office. This is Paul. He's with the United States Forest Service. Maria Gilberry. Jay Lazarus, who is our consultant at the city of Las Vegas. Our, not geologist, hydrologist, sorry. Both. And of course, our city manager, Leo Maestas. Thank you, everybody, for being here. This is a good opportunity to exchange information. There'll be questions and answers after each presentation. And I'd like to start off, first of all, with letting you know how fast we're spending the federal money that's going to be sent to us. It's already spent. We just don't have the check, right? So we're working on some very important projects with the city of Las Vegas. And part of the mission of these major water projects, Las Vegas will soon be known as the Water Technology Center of New Mexico, because we are getting the biggest and the best of all the equipment. And this is for the purpose of making sure that we have water for the future. So I'd like to call on Jay and Maria just to give you an update on some of our most immediate projects, some of the projects that we're working on for the future, and give you some information regarding how we intend to use every single penny of the federal money that is being sent to us from Washington. So Maria Gilberry and Jay Lazarus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor introduced me, I am the utilities director for the city of Las Vegas, and I'm really excited to talk about the 4 big projects. I'm going to jump right in. We have 4 big projects that we're working on to be able to address the critical needs of the city as a result of the fire and the subsequent flooding. And that's because we have a lot of sediment, a lot of water quality issues that we have to deal with, and the complete disaster that happened to our watershed. So 2 of the 4 projects are sediment removal systems. Due to the amount of sediment that we have in the river, we need these sediment removal systems to get it out of the river before we send it to Bradner and Peterson for storage. Bradner and Peterson are pristine reservoirs, unless we have unfortunate overtopping like we had last year. But those are pristine reservoirs. We need to keep the sediment out of those reservoirs, and that's where we take the water from to treat for the community within our current system. That system is a system that's designed to treat nearly pristine water. We have very good water. We had very good water coming down the Guayanus River. And so the system is not designed for 100, 200, and 300 NTU water, or even 4,000, which is what we got up to last year coming down the river. So the sediment removal are the first 2 big projects that we already have going in planning and design. We have received some funding through the Hermits Peak Cap Canyon Act to start phase 1 planning and design for those 2 systems. We have the funds. We've already given the notice to proceed to the engineers, and the engineers have already started on those projects. Do you have anything you want to add on specifically on the sediment removal?
Hi, I'm Jay Lazarus with Laureatus Geoscience. We have a sediment removal plant, a temporary one right now, at the base of Story that is capable, once we get a pump replaced, of producing about 1,000 gallons a minute of treated water to be able to pump from Story. We have 800 acre feet of storage right in Story that the city owns. It's currently full, so we're taking that water and we're pumping it back up to Peterson and Bradner or to the drinking water plant, which gives us that much more water security for the city.
And Jay, thanks for bringing that up. Just to kind of fill that in, our reservoirs are about 85 to 90% full right now. We have never had our reservoirs this full at this time of the year. So we're able to, through the help of some of the other water users, we've been able to take a lot of water off the river, either bring it through the sediment removal system or take those opportunities when the water quality is good to be able to fill our reservoirs. That gives us even more, a little bit more of a buffer to prepare for what we know is coming. And I will tell you what's coming again this year is going to be what happened last year or worse. By that, I mean there will be sediment coming down the river. There will be a lot of debris coming down the river. There will be a lot of challenges with the water quality that we'll still have to deal with for many years to come. So the other two projects I want to talk about, the next one is the water treatment facility itself. So because the water quality is not the same, what we're dealing with TOCs, DOCs, the chemicals in the water, the sediment in the water, what we're dealing with coming down the river, we need a new water treatment system. One with a better filtration system and a way to address the challenges we're dealing with. So we are already moving forward with what's called a preliminary engineering report. Whenever you do a project of this size, which is about a 50 to 60 to $70 million project, we need to do our due diligence and develop a preliminary engineering report. So we have an engineer under contract that is going to evaluate the water quality, the location, modern technologies, what's the best way for us to be able to treat this water with the staffing that we have, because I'll tell you that is a challenge. A lot of the newer treatment systems have extremely amazing technology, but you need very talented people to be able to operate that. And we do have talented people, but we have only a handful of those. So that's one of the requirements that we've given to the engineer is we need a system that can treat the water with the challenges we have, but we need to take into consideration the operators that we have. And so we're not just saying, give us a Cadillac. We don't want a Cadillac. We want a system that will work for 50 years, that we don't have to ever be in the situation we were in this last year. So the water treatment facility, again, we're now moving forward with a preliminary engineering report. And from that, we'll get recommendations from the engineer on the type of treatment, the location, and the challenges that we will be able to address with that.
Why do we need a water treatment facility? Why do we need a new water treatment facility?
Because they're
We've needed it for years.
Well,
it was up to
it
snuff.
was up to snuff. The old one was working. It was
working,
built,
but it couldn't handle the.
it was built around the pristine water that was coming down the Guajenas River, that filter system. So now that the water has completely changed, our technology failed. So, well, it didn't fail, but we're hanging on. We'll get to questions
Oh,
later.
I just wanted to know if this had to do with the dirty water coming out of the faucet.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
Okay. So that is the reason why we need a water treatment facility. Go ahead. Mary.
So we are moving forward on that. We're really excited about that. We have some engineers who've been developing water treatment systems for decades. And so we have high quality engineers working on this project with us. And then the fourth project, I believe the mayor said we were going to get to questions in a minute. Then the fourth project that we have is effluent reuse, an advanced wastewater treatment system. So with that project, we're going to be able to reuse water that we already own. It's already ours. It's our water rights. We'll be able to treat it to drinking water standards. We're going to use modern technologies. We're going to be using the same engineers that have been doing this in California to be able to take what already belongs to the city of Las Vegas. And instead of sending it down the river and giving it to someone else, we're going to be able to treat it to drinking water standards, blend it back with river water, and make sure that we can reuse the water, and that we limit the chances of us ever being in the lack of water quantity that we dealt with last year. Last year we got down to 21 days of water. We never want to get down there again. So we want to make sure we have multiple water sources. We have the river when it's available to be used. We have the well field, and we will also have the ability to treat water to drinking water standards, blend it back with river water, and then treat it again. And we will be working closely with the Environment Department, engineers who've been doing this in other states. This kind of system is we're working in Texas, Colorado, Oceanside, San Diego, Wichita Falls, Abilene, Orange County.
She's trying to read my writing.
Orange County,
California.
California. And I know Colorado is working on some, and Arizona is also working on it. So we need to make sure that we as a community are making the most use out of our resources so that we're never in this position again. So those are the 4 projects. Again, we're already moving forward with phase 1 on all of them. We will be keeping everybody up to date. We do have a website or a page on Facebook where I'm trying to keep everybody up to date on the status of those projects. But always feel free to give me a call at the utilities office, 454-3832. And I would love to be able to meet with folks and be able to talk them through these projects that we're doing and the status of the projects. I don't know if Jay, you had anything to add?
I'd like to just touch a little bit about the technology that we're using and the power of the consultants that we're using. We're using people who have been through this before, who have established these types of water systems. So we're not starting from scratch. We're using a national consulting agency to help us with this. And maybe Jay would like to talk a little bit about the connections we've made with Stantec and some of the other companies that we're working with.
Thank you, Mayor. Maria's gonna kill me for this, but I'm gonna put her language in English. Okay, NPUs. Okay, that's a measure in our technical world of how turbid or cloudy the water is, okay? Remember, we had an old aging water treatment plant, but it worked because we had great quality water coming down the river. Effectively, the fire broke the river, okay? Now, what we're trying to do is take this tragedy and turn it into a forward-thinking positive process for the city. So for the new drinking water plant that Maria talked about, that's gonna be about $60 million. You know, the other 2 items, we should talk about the DOC and TOC, dissolved organic carbon, total organic carbon. These are constituents that make our treatment that much more expensive, and we have to use more chemicals. Like I said, the fire broke the river, okay? So for the new drinking water plant, we're estimating about $60 million cost for that. For the Up Canyon Guyanas River sediment removal plant, we're looking at about $10 million for that. We're looking at another $10 million for a permanent sediment removal plant down in Story. This will give us the ultimate flexibility because taking the sediment out up the canyon, we can put the water directly by gravity into Peterson and Bradner. Taking it from Story, we have to pump it back up the hill at quite high cost to take care of it. Okay? And then the Aguaputa plant that Maria talked about, and the mayor talked about, that'll be about another $60 million. Okay? The way that it's heading right now is that we're working with the Environment Department to develop regulations for what we call indirect potable water reuse, where we'll be treating the water at the wastewater treatment plant, which right now meets almost all drinking water standards before it's discharged to Guyanas. Okay, and the wastewater operators are tremendous. That water is going to be treated again to drinking water standards, pumped back up into Peterson and Bradner, where it'll be blended with river water and treated again. So we're looking at treatment 3 times for this water. Like Maria said, it's water we already own, and the design right now is for about 1 million gallons a day, probably 150,000 to 300,000 gallon a day pilot plant. So we can try and get the bugs out of the system, get our operators trained on it, have it be a modular setup so we can plumb it right in to the full plant. And that 1 million gallons a day comes out to about 1,000 acre feet a year, or almost half of the city's demand. And like Maria said, that's water that we already own. And I've worked directly with Pure Water Oceanside and Pure Water San Diego in California on their plants. They stressed the need for a pilot plant. San Diego had one. The regulators in California said, Oceanside, you don't need one because you know what's going on. But the folks in Oceanside now wish that they had a pilot plant so they could have a way to train their operators and then get the bugs out of the system. This is all existing technology. It's nothing new. And, you know, I think I'll keep in perspective that we're going to be dealing with this broken river for at least 10 more years. That's pretty sobering. You know, based on US Army Corps of Engineers modeling, the 100-year flood event, our diversion will be under 15 feet of water. Okay. For perspective on what's going to happen in town, the football field over here will be under 4 feet of water. Okay. So we've got a broken river that needs fixing. We need forest thinning. We need all sorts of maintenance, and we're going to have a ton of debris coming down the river that needs to be controlled. That's why the sediment removal plants up the canyon and down the Story are so critical to the future of the city's short-term water security, and the Agua Puta project so critical to the city's long-term water security. Thank you, Mayor.
I'd like to open up for questions regarding the city water projects. Yes, sir.
Oh, hello, Mendoza here. I'm a resident, I don't live in Las Vegas, but I'm affected because we come into town and go to the restaurants and use the car washes. I want to ask a question about the water treatment plant. Are you going to add another water treatment plant or just remove the old one? Because I think it would be wise to add another one. The price you said was like 60 million. I also think it's going to be about 150 million. So would it be better to have two water treatment plants? And then I have another question.
You only get one.
I've got a lot of questions for the Forest Service. Mr. Ortiz's administration and one of the engineers suggested that they have 3 years of water storage. So you guys mentioned 1,000 acre feet. That's about 1 year of water, maybe a little bit more. So you're thinking about that as well?
I'll let the experts answer this.
Thank you, sir. Very good question. So the goal for the new facility is to be able to handle the quantity that we need for today, plus if we are going to grow, we want to make sure that we have enough so that we don't need it. The challenge with this older system, if we keep it, we may not really be able to use it very often because of the poor water quality. So we would want to, and also the location that it's at, if it stays where it's at, then that's, it's not designed for what we're trying to get it to do. And so it would probably not be efficient to continue to keep it. The cost of treating water with that system would be a lot more expensive than treating water with the new system. And it's also not very efficient. So we're looking for those recommendations from the engineer, and if the engineer makes the recommendation that we build a new one and we keep the old one, we can consider that, but we'll take into, well, when we consider that, it's how much is it going to cost to operate? Do we have the staff to operate multiple facilities? And what is the water quality benefit to the community? So, and I think the second question was
Storage.
storage. So right now we do have 800 acre feet in Story. We have 200 acre feet in Peterson, and we're getting ready to, in the next few years, we need to take Peterson offline. It's leaking. And so the city already had a project moving forward to take Peterson offline, remove the dam. The dam is from 1911, 1910, and it is leaking. It needs to be replaced. And so we're already working on that. That's going to be another 200 to 300 acre feet, and then Bradner is 300. So between that, we have 1,200 acre feet. Some of the balances with additional water storage is the evaporative losses. So we want to make sure we have enough storage. And so to I guess the short answer is we're always looking for more storage with the right storage.
Oh, I don't need that, don't hear me.
Oh, go ahead.
The dead can hear me.
Go ahead.
My question is basically simple. With the condition of the river as it is now, is that why it's contributing to the issues that we're having in our homes where we turn on our faucet and dirt's coming through? We have to let it run.
So I appreciate that question. So there is a little bit of connection, and what that is, so inside of our pipes, our water has a lot of minerals in it. So what happens is along the pipes, minerals start to adhere to the inside of the PVC or the inside of the ductile iron, whatever the pipe material is. And when we add in additional disinfectant, sometimes, and also flush, that can loosen up those minerals. And that's what ends up coming out at your faucet. It is not dirt, because we do, when it comes out of the system, our system up at the treatment plant will actually shut down if turbidities reach a certain amount. And so that is not dirt that's in there, but what it is it's minerals and it does discolor your water. Please call us whenever that happens. We will come flush in the vicinity of that, of your house because it's affecting you and your neighbors. We want to be able to flush and get that discolored water out of there.
Right, thank you.
Are you all planning on going after that $160 million through the Congressional Act funds? I mean,
We are taking every opportunity to go after any funding we can go after to continue to improve the city of Las Vegas utility system, whether it's our sewer systems or our water system. If it is specifically related to the damage that happened to our watershed from the fire, we're working through the Hermit's Peak Cap Canyon Act. We're also reaching out to congressionally directed spending. NMFA has been calling us, asking us how they can help. So right now, any and every opportunity for grant funding, because we do not want to put this financial burden on the shoulders of the community. We're going to do everything to not do that. So we are taking it, we are taking every funding opportunity and using it.
Mr. Aragon.
Thank you. Why is it that we got a brand new car wash at the time that we're having all these problems? And our rates went up.
You're gonna get my steps in today.
Thank you, sir. So first, we have not raised rates, water rates since 2000, and I believe it was actually, so you might even be able to help me with this, 2012? 2013. Water rates have not been raised since 2012, 2013. The reason a car wash was every business owner or every person who's requesting a business has the right to submit the request and go through the process with City Hall and development, the review boards and all the other parts of community development. And so they met all the requirements, including reuse of and recycle of their water. So they met all the requirements. And it was before the fire.
It was before the fire and they recycle a large percent of the water that they use.
We were in a drought.
I know.
And they did shut down.
They did shut down. We asked them to shut down during that period and they did. Yeah, sure.
The new technologies that you're talking about sound really good, but wouldn't it be prudent to use some funds to actually clean the river? Some of the debris that's in the river right now that we know is going to wash down.
Absolutely, and we are submitting for funding support for cleaning out the river. We absolutely are submitting for funding support to be able to clean out and remove the sediment that is in the river. We've already done that a couple of times. We are going to do it again, and we will continue to ask for financial support in those costs.
Sorry to make you
Get your exercise.
The floodplains are the biggest workhorse of our watersheds. And Jay Lazarus says our river is broken. Well, it's really the entire watershed that's broken, and it's the floodplains next to that river. I'm wondering what the city and what others might be able to come up with to help encourage landowners that have floodplain areas that don't have any infrastructure in them to allow us to use those floodplains to dissipate flood energy, to drop out sediment, to drop out ash and debris on those floodplains. And there are plenty of those places available in the Guinness and other watersheds.
Nature can do our job for us. Some of the challenges are property in the county and property in the city. I think there would be a conversation that at least some of the agencies, I know you're trying to with Hermit's Peak Watershed Alliance, work with some of the folks that live along the river. And I don't know what the appropriate conversation that the city could have with folks. It is necessary. And But I know you guys are trying really hard to work with some locals.
What about some compensation for landowners that will allow their properties to be used for that?
Well, first of all, everyone in the room should know what a great job Lee and her group are doing, but I'll say that. It's tough because the city owns very little land in the watershed. It's either private or Forest Service. So the private landowners can go to Tierra y Montes and apply for funding for whatever kinds of projects that they could have for either stabilization or any other kinds of projects that I would think Leah would be a good source for those folks to get some knowledge so they can talk more intelligently to Tierra y Montes about trying getting this money, because Tierra y Montes basically funnels money from the NRCS to the private landowners. And so it's the private landowners going to Tierra y Montes with the issues that they want to have solved and work with them through that. And Leah would be a great resource for that. And then, the big one in the room is the Forest Service, with all the thousands of acres that they control. And none of us really have any control over what they're doing up there for any kind of ways to fix the watershed, fix the river.
With all due respect, Tierra y Montes and the NRCS have done absolutely nothing with the property owners of the Guyamas Canyon.
I'm sorry, who said, okay,
I
thank
just said
you.
with-
That's good to know.
Yeah.
No, we've had to work with, since the fire, we've had to work with 21 different governmental agencies. Okay, we didn't get a penny from NRCS. NRCS specifically told us Tierra y Montes is the vehicle for that funding. And I'm sorry to hear that, but I guess I'm glad to know it.
So why are we paying them every 2 times a year? We're paying Tierra y Montes in our disbursements and our property tax.
We don't know.
If they're not even doing their job.
And why is it only?
I have one more question for water projects.
Why is it only on the east bank that we get?
I just want to reinforce this statement. I have work done on my land, Department of Interior Wildlife Partners grant, and Tierra y Montes did the project. Mother Nature didn't care for the way they did it during the last year's flooding. It's all gone. All the boulders have been moved. The river is more in size than it was, or the stream is more in size than it was before we started. Tierra y Montes says they can't do anything. NRCS came to my home residence and they said, nope, we can't do anything for you either. So you've got a little issue going on here. Thank you. My name is Sonia Berg. I'm here.
Who owns the pond, and is that going to be part of the cleanup of the river?
We own the pond and it is going to be cleaned up. The city does. Some,
I just have a question about Story Lake and using the water out of Story Lake, since it is a motor boat lake and we allow motors. How does the process work to get rid of the petroleum and other chemicals that are in the lake?
Very good question. So we do have,
Who's the mic for you?
yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Here comes Lloyd.
Run.
Very good question. So when it comes to Story, first we blend the water. We do run it through the pretreatment system, and then we take it to Peterson and we blend it there. When it does go through our filtration system, we do track the turbidity, the water quality, and the disinfectant before it ever leaves the system. So it goes through our filtration and it goes through with the chemicals that we use and it pulls that out.
I'm going to entertain one more question on water projects.
Thank you, Mayor. I just spoke earlier with Jay, and I spoke briefly with the mayor and with my, so I look at the 140 million as a one-time deal for us. There's a chance, I guess, we could have another fire in the future. I pray that it never happens. But we really have to be resourceful with 140 million. I think from my perspective, the sediment ponds, the both of those, the $10 million, one up upstream and one at the Story, I think are great for us. I also think the upgraded filter plant will always be in our best interest. We need to keep up with technology. The hard sell for me is filtering the effluent system. And I know you talked about doing it 3 times. That's the one that's a hard sell for me. People already have issues with the quality of water. And now we're going to filter it 3 times and then send it back down for people to drink. And I know it happens up and down the Mississippi and all the cities you talked about. But I think with 140 million, you really need to look for another water source. I don't know where we get it, where we tap holes in the ground, how we do those kind of things. Do you guys have other options other than the effluent being refilled?
Jay, would you like to talk about that?
We've looked 100 miles away from Las Vegas for other water supplies. Okay? Pipelines, easements, water rights, they all enter into how we evaluate this. We've worked with the state engineer office on multiple sites that they were coming up with. And every time we turned around, we were told by the people in that specific drainage basin, sure, come on, we're going to protest you and we're going to tie you up for 10 years. Matt, we own this water, okay? We don't have to take any acequia rights. We don't have to take any story rights. It's already water that the city owns, and it's effectively a guaranteed supply of about another 1,000 acre feet. And we can't go someplace, 100 miles. We said, we looked 100 miles from here. Okay? And we're not just putting all our eggs in this basket today. We've spent since last April time looking 100 miles from here, and we come back home where we already own the water, Matt.
Well, I'm down in Thomas. So those engineers have to come and live here a while, make sure they drink that water for a while.
I'll drink it, Matt.
I will too. Sorry, we're gonna move on to the next. Did you have one more question?
Yes, what about brackish water? We're sitting on huge basin over the state's basin. And the governor is very interested in using brackish water technology. Israelis are using it.
Please repeat the question.
Very good at it. And
You're asking about brackish water.
So I think you need to follow up on that. I've already contacted the governor on that. She's very interested.
Okay, thank you. We can talk about that. Go ahead, Jim.
Brackish water in this part of the world is not the panacea everybody thinks it is or it's made out to be. Maybe 10, 12 years ago, there was this big gold rush for brackish water around the state. Okay? We created all the geologic framework in all the basins around the state that the state engineer uses. Okay? It is a limited supply of water. It is a stopgap for other sources of water. For brackish water, you've got to space your wells out quite a bit, probably under half a mile or more, because these are limited confined aquifers and the wells will interfere with each other and draw each other down. Additionally, the cost to construct these wells is tremendous because you have to have stainless steel screen and stainless steel casing, because this water at great depth is under pressure and it comes up and it's highly corrosive. So you have these very expensive well screen, very expensive well casing, that costs are astronomical, and then the waste stream from the brackish water, you have to either build big evaporation ponds or go through really expensive RO to make it work. This is not the part of the world where it may be economic, but every place we've looked, these aquifers are limited and they're a stopgap measure for other sources.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our next presenter, which is Angela with FEMA.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Again, for those who don't know me, my name is Angela Gladwell. I'm director of the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon Claims Office that was established back in the beginning of October of last year. Once the Fire Assistance Act was put into place. And so I want to tell you a little bit about our progress, what we've been doing, where we are, and what you can expect next on our program. And I just want to say a thank you to the mayor for inviting us to speak tonight and share this with you. So in September, if we can just go back a slide for just a moment. In September 30th, again, President Biden signed the Hermit's Peak Cap Canyon Fire Assistance Act, and in total allocated $3.95 billion to compensate those who've been impacted by the fires. And I have some slides out of order. If you could go 2 slides forward, please. So as many of you know, between November and January last year, November of last year and this January, we held 6 public comment meetings here in Las Vegas, in Mora, Taos, and Colfax to provide the opportunity for the public to provide feedback on the interim final rule. We received over 300 public comments on the interim final rule. And right now, we are still working to address the comments and finalize the rule. I want to manage expectations with you that finalizing a rule under the regulatory process takes time, and we're working through it as expeditiously as we can. But meanwhile, as we've gone through the comments, we know that we can address a large majority of the concerns raised in the public comments now and how we implement the program. And so we intend to move forward with implementing as much of the claims process as possible as we're finalizing the rule. Now I can go back 1 slide, please. So based on some of your feedback, I just want to provide a couple of upfront clarifications and just restatements of some of the important parts of our program. So first, our office will address losses that were a result of the fire to include flooding and other impacts. Folks have asked us whether flooding and those other impacts that occurred later will be part of our program. And yes, they will. Again, we'll compensate for personal injury, property loss, business losses, financial losses resulting from the fire. And I just want to reiterate that this program, the claims office, under this new authority, differs from FEMA disaster assistance programs that you've experienced earlier in the disaster. This act provides compensation, very much like an insurance claim process for those impacted by the fire that will be distributed through our office. The other thing, again, I just want to emphasize, because this was such a significant comment in the public comment period, is that we understand the importance of trees to your culture and to your livelihoods, and that the language that we had in the interim final rule was, as we talked about earlier, was based on the Cerro Grande fire from 20 years ago. And so it doesn't reflect the unique needs that you have, and it's very much our intention to be able to do that as we implement this program. The other thing I just want to make sure that you're aware of is that we've been working very closely with our partners. We've been consulting with the state of New Mexico, the Attorney General's office, the Insurance Commission, and other federal agencies to inform our claims policies and our process and to align our programs. And this work is going to continue as we move forward. So to prepare for the program implementation, we've been working very hard to hire local staff who understand the unique cultural needs of your communities. We've been working to build out physical office spaces, develop the claims office policy and process that will guide our staff in their mission of compensating those affected by the losses. So based on your feedback and what I've learned about your experiences and needs, if you go to the next slide, please. No, yes, that one, please. I first want to tell you about the values and the principles that we have put in place for our claims office program. I've mentioned to others in public meetings, I consider myself a values-based leader, and it's really important for me after listening to your stories and your experiences, to let you know that I've used that information and what I've heard to help shape the values in our office and how we're approaching our work. First, compassion. We are going to strive to conduct every interaction with our team, our partners, and those of you impacted by the fires and floods with compassion. We know your grief and your loss and that you carry it with you every day. And we also want to help you use this program to reduce future losses from fire and flood where possible. Second, fairness. We are going to strive to make every decision fairly on this team, from operations to claim settlement, upholding the dignity of everyone involved. We know you're concerned about being treated fairly, and fairness is in the forefront of our minds as we begin to process claims. Third, integrity. Our team is accountable to you, to the public, to ensure that we choose courage over comfort, choose what's right over what is fun, fast, or easy, and choose to practice our values daily. We want to be straightforward with you, tell you what we know and we don't know, make commitments to you that we can keep, and make the best claims decisions we can to meet your needs and be stewards of this funding. And fourth, respect. We value individual perspectives and experience, ensuring that in every interaction, we treat teammates and you with respect. We want to meet your individual needs, whether that's coming to you, providing assistance in getting through the process, or other needs. And we're using these values to guide all aspects of our program development, from hiring to program design to claims operations. Next slide, please. We are really out of order here. If we can go back. No, back, please. That one, yes. Thank you. Okay, so I committed to you that we would hire locally, and we're making good progress on this commitment. I'm excited to announce that 19 new local hire staff joined the claims office last Monday on March 13th, and more will join us in mid-April. We selected these staff from local hiring events in Las Vegas and Mora and Santa Fe, and most of these staff will serve as claims navigators and will work with claimants one-on-one to provide assistance throughout the claims process. We've also contracted with 16 claims reviewers who will work the details of your claims, and we'll up that number if we need to. Collectively, we're currently training these team members. They've been in training all last week and this week, preparing them to begin working on your claims. And I'm proud to announce the selection of 2 key leadership positions, our deputy director and the claims office advocate. And our new deputy director is here with us, local from the surrounding community, and would like to have her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Carvajal. Before I was selected for this position as Deputy Director supporting Angela Gladwell in the Claims Office, I've been co-chairing the long-term recovery group with Dr. Martinez from Luna. I'm also an impacted resident, and I still have a house in Rosiada. Before that, I was in the military for 13 years, where one of my last assignments was developing policy for the Pentagon. And previous to that, my expertise was in space systems, in acquisitions and procurement for the government. So hence why I was selected for this position. In addition to being deputy at the claims office, I take great pride in helping our local community. I'm originally from El Paso, Texas. Y hablo español también. Mi abuelos son de Mexico. I also speak Spanish. My grandparents were all from Mexico. So this really has a special meaning to be able to support our community here in northern New Mexico, and it means a lot. And I look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's so great to have her on board. She just started with us as well on March 13th. And also, I'm happy to announce that Paula Gutierrez is the new claims office advocate. Her daughter is getting married this week, so she's not here with us to introduce herself, but I'm sure that you will see her soon. She is a tribal member from the Pueblo of Santa Clara. She most recently served as Tribal Affairs Liaison for our FEMA Regional Office out of Texas. She was also a local emergency management director here for the tribe and disaster recovery manager for the Santa Clara Pueblo. Her life's work has been as an advocate role. And she's really brings a great mix of experience to the team and to the advocate role. Next slide, please. So we intend to have staff working in our newly established Mora and Santa Fe offices at the end of March, followed by our Las Vegas office in April. We will be announcing the locations and open the offices to the public in just a few weeks, once our new team members are settled and things are fully operational. And additionally, our public-facing phone number, which will be staffed by local hires here in New Mexico, will go live next Monday on March 27th. So what can you expect as our team begins working on your claim? This is my commitment to you. Within the first 30 days of having our staff working in our offices starting this coming Monday, our claims navigators will reach out by phone to everyone who has already submitted a notice of loss form to discuss next steps in their claim. During these calls, your assigned navigator will discuss your notice of loss and schedule a follow-up meeting, either in one of our claims offices or a location that is convenient for the claimant, including coming to your home. We will also begin to formally acknowledge the notice of loss forms via mail and email, which will officially start the 180-day timeframe for us to come to a final determination of payment. We want to begin working your claim as soon as possible and address easier and more urgent needs while we continue to build out the program and address the more complex policy issues. So as we begin to work on your claim, we will discuss the full scope of your losses and needs and help you get a disaster case manager if desired, which is through the state, DHS-EM, to address unmet needs outside the scope of the claims office. We will then focus on easier issues first. And we will explore whether you're eligible for and interested in a partial payment. We will pay off your small business administration loan with interest if you have one, and work with you to get a flood insurance policy in place if that's applicable to you. And we will address more complex issues later in the 180-day process. So now I just want to talk to you briefly about partial payments and flood insurance. As we begin working with each person who has submitted a claim, your assigned navigator and claims reviewer will explore your interest and eligibility for partial payments. A partial payment is a payment that can be made to a claimant before final settlement of the claim. By accepting a partial payment, you do not waive your right to pursue a different remedy for the remainder of your losses. You do not need to make this choice until the end of the process. Typically, partial payments are going to be focused on more straightforward losses with simple documentation requirements that we can review and process efficiently. These are examples, but it's not a limited list of what could be included in a partial payment. Temporary lodging costs that were not covered by FEMA's Individual Assistance Program. Evacuation expenses. Debris removal expenses that FEMA's Public Assistance Program is not paying for. Flood insurance policies, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Medical expenses incurred. SBA loans, vehicle damage, and business inventory losses that have already been incurred. You also may have additional recovery activities that have not yet been completed or costs not yet incurred, which may be suited for a partial payment. And we're training our claims office staff to help identify these opportunities. Your navigator and claims reviewer will walk through this process and the documentation requirements and options. It will be your decision on whether to pursue a partial payment. We will communicate new information on the partial payment process in the coming weeks, both publicly to make sure that you have as much information as possible. If you choose not to pursue a partial payment, your assigned navigator and claims reviewer will work with you on next steps to prepare the full proof of loss for your claim. Next slide. Flood insurance. We have heard and understand the need for multi-year flood insurance coverage. We're exploring options to meet this long-term need within the limitations of the law. Just so you're aware, the law right now says we can't pay for flood insurance past the end of May of next year. Meanwhile, given the future risk of flooding in the area, we know that's going to occur. If you have a concern about flood risk as a result of the fire, we want to work with you to get flood insurance as quickly as possible. I just want to provide a note here. It's important to kind of understand that flood insurance is only available in communities that participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. And when a community comes into that program, they must take certain actions, including adoption and enforcement of local floodplain ordinances. These ordinances, to protect people from flooding, establish certain building standards to protect property owners. And so, as a note, it's really important as you rebuild to work with your local building officials to ensure you follow the appropriate standards. This is going to protect your property, and it's going to ensure the continued availability of flood insurance, which we can pay for. So the claims office can reimburse both for an existing flood insurance policy or the purchase of a new insurance policy for anyone who has a reasonable fear of heightened flood risk due to the fire. So to make this simple, if you live in San Miguel or Mora counties, you will be automatically eligible for flood insurance coverage under the claims office as long as you are in a National Flood Insurance Program participating community. And there's only a few that are not. We may also be able to pay for your flood insurance if you live outside of these two counties and are concerned about flooding as a result of the fires. We'll just need to evaluate the request on a case-by-case basis. You should include the request for flood insurance policy coverage in your notice of loss. But I just also want to note, you can submit, if you're not ready to file your full claim, you can submit a notice of loss just for flood insurance so that we can quickly work with you to get that flood insurance in place. So as I wrap up, just a couple of next steps. Next slide, please. If you have not submitted a notice of loss, now is the time to do so. Again, we have staff, we have navigators, we have claims reviewers on board, and they're ready to start processing claims. Again, you can submit the notice of loss through November 14th of 2024. It's a 2-year period by statute. We will be sharing important information regularly as we move forward. We are planning another public meeting in Mora in mid-April timeframe, and others as needed as we move forward. And the other thing I just wanted to let you know, yesterday we launched our new Hermits Peak Half Canyon Claims Office Facebook page. And it went live yesterday, and we're going to use this to update you and provide regular information to you on events, if we're speaking publicly, if we have new information, and just generally to stay in communication with you. One note that I just want to point out is if you see the logo on the bottom left corner of this slide deck, that is the official claims office logo. So if you're trying to figure out whether this is an authoritative source of information directly from the claims office, look for this logo on all products, on all information that you see, because that's going to tell you that that's where it's coming from. Okay, I know we want to try to make sure that we're getting accurate and good information out to you, and that's a good way for you to know that. And with that, Mayor, I'll turn to you if folks want to ask a few questions.
Thank you, Mayor Trio. Again, Manuel Garcia here. I have a couple of questions. How much overhead does FEMA expect for the administration of the claims, including cost of websites, staffing, labor, and other compensation costs? I noticed that you had said that you were outsourcing the website a couple of months ago. And then how are you going to manage waste, fraud, and abuse? I used to work at Sandia Labs and I retired from there. And I know that goes on quite a bit, no matter where it is. So we're gonna be tracking that with the Attorney General, with Solicitor Generals, and with the Governor's Office. So those two questions.
Thank you, sir, very much for your questions. I'm going to start with your last one first, on waste, fraud, and abuse. So we have already started partnering with the Inspector General and just for everyone's awareness, the Inspector General did get $2 million once the act was passed. We've already been engaging with them. They have been here in New Mexico. We are working with them on the internal controls that we are designing to put in place within our office, and they are going to be coming in but before the end of the year, just to provide us some feedback on those as we move forward. And they are also coming in to provide training to all of our team members on things to look for so we can proactively manage that. On your first question on administrative costs, it is a very important issue. We are not outsourcing our webpage, so that is something that is internal to us. But we do have several contracts in place. And so my one thing to know is that when you look at overall delivery of a new program, we can go, let me see if I can get this right. You've got fast, cost-effective, and high quality. Pick two. And that's generally kind of where we're going. And so we're focusing on the urgent nature of what we're doing. We're trying to serve your needs here in New Mexico and doing that as cost effectively as we possibly can.
Thank you, Mayor. What kind of help can we get for fraud from contractors that we've hired? I had to hire a contractor for plumbing and electrical. It's the same guy. I haven't seen him since Christmas after I paid him because I was going to be attending appointments with the VA. So I didn't want to hold him up, so I paid him the full amount. Now I got trenches all over my yard for the house I bought. It's sitting, but it's not connected to the septic, the water, or the electric. Can we get some kind of help for fraud charges?
So we have a set of things that we are able to pay for under the compensation program, a certain number of losses. I think one of the things that we're very interested in doing, again, we're a compensation program, so we're going to be providing basically funding to you to be able to carry out whatever work that you want. I think the important thing for us is to make sure that we're helping to understand collectively what your needs are, and if there's other ways that we can help link to other programs that can help support you, that we can do so.
Thank you. I have a question. So do you know when the final procedures will be published? I know we're waiting on a final rule, but procedures so we know step 1 through final.
So we are, should I use the mic? Can you all hear me? Yes? Yes? Use the mic?
We
okay, let me come up there. So right now, just to step back and reiterate, we are building this program as we go. I have prioritized being able to start the process with you all so that we can start figuring out partial payments and where appropriate going to be able to start getting you that funding. Again, we're building out the rest of the program as we go. That's also going to allow us to get feedback from you and see how things are working and use that to finalize our program. we're gonna expect that final procedures are going to really be timed with the final rule as we move forward to make sure that it's complete and reflecting all of the things that we're building out.
Can I ask another question on that then? Thank you. So my next question on that is, if somebody does their notice of loss and they accept a partial payment, and that 25%, which is the real issue a lot of people have, is it fixed or fixed in time for their claim? Are they waiving their right to go to federal court on that 25% issue?
Good question, and I appreciate it. There's a couple of pieces there. One, we will not be in a circumstance where we go back as we finalize the rule and take money away. So it would only be in a situation, as we address the comments and finalize the rule, that we may be providing additional funding. So that's one piece. The second question.
So if they take money, are
Oh,
they
okay,
waiving
yes.
their right to go to federal court?
So they are not. So if you accept a partial payment, you will need to sign a release and certification form. That basically is just saying that for the losses that you are getting the partial payment for, that you do not, that you will not be seeking additional compensation for those losses. That does not mean you have to decide at that point to go through all the way through our claims process. You don't have to decide that until later. You don't have to decide that until you get the full determination of the amount that we would give you. And then you can decide you're going to either accept that or you're going to say, no, thank you, and sue.
Thank you. We have time for one more question for Pino.
I have a question about the availability of building supplies. We've seen at least 10 times the price of building materials just since we've been back from Santa Rosa. And it amounted to, in one case, we bought PVC pipe for a sewage system that 6 months ago cost $20. And today, the first time we bought it, it was $44. And the second time we bought it from a different hardware store, it was $78 a piece, meaning that a simple septic line going to our existing tank costs us $1,000. What can be done about this inflation?
She has the answer. I wanted to learn the president.
I was just gonna say that.
I wish that I could solve the problem of inflation, but what I do want you to know is we understand that what it costs to rebuild today is more than what it was previously or whenever you built your home. So we do understand that.
It's also more than we put in our notice of, our actual notice of loss and notice of damages. It's also way more than that.
So just to clarify, when you submit a notice of loss, you do not need to submit any numbers or documentation at that point. Really, that notice of loss is just raising your hand saying, I would like to seek compensation for my losses. It's once the navigator starts working with you and the claims reviewer that you'll be able to really dig into the types of losses you have, what documentation is needed, where can we help you with that, and then to really get into the details of the amounts. So don't worry about it if you have already submitted some numbers and those have changed. It really is going to rely on what's on the proof of loss that's going to indicate what your final determination offer will be.
Thank you. At this point, we're going to move on to our next presentation. It's from the U.S. Forest Service. Mr. Paul Hancock is here to talk to you about the Forest Service. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Hancock. Just a real quick orientation, if you're on this side, I'm going to be using these maps here on the wall, so I apologize, you're going to be standing behind me. But again, so my name is Paul Hancock. I'm the acting district ranger for the Pecos Las Vegas Ranger District. I started my detail in January, so this story and what I'm talking about, a lot of it came from just when I started. what I wanted to do was come here and start telling you about, putting the plans in place and what we've been working on. So that's my intent for right now. And then talk a little bit about where we're going, what you can expect as the forest opens up, that kind of stuff. So these 3 maps on the wall, this one over here is, I'll get to in a moment, but these 2 have the fire perimeter on them. Just for real quick reference from the background, Mora is right here, Las Vegas is down here, just to give you a general reference. Okay, so having been through an escape prescribed fire before, one of the first things I learned about doing that was that you need to focus on the community and the people. Okay, everything that we do and we're working towards, it needs to have a community focus and something that can help people either heal or start to recover or just benefit the communities. We, as a public land manager, I fully recognize how integrated we are with the communities and how tied in we are to the landscape and how much it means to all of us. So with that, one of the first things that you can do on the Forest Service side that doesn't require a lot of work is you start looking at your range infrastructure. Okay, the permittees that run on these allotments that run within the fire perimeter, they are some of the most impacted people who actually utilize the landscape, and so their livelihoods are literally tied to it because of the cattle they run on it, that kind of stuff. So what I did was I said, okay, where are we at with the allotments? How many permittees do we have? Where do we have vacant allotments? So I started with range. Okay. In the north, on the Rio de la Casa allotment, it has 7 multiple permittees. It has 7 permittees. So 7 people are going to be the most benefited from our immediate actions. And so with that one, what we did was we started working on the contract for the range fence, the boundary and in the gap fences, any of the fence range infrastructure within the allotment. Okay, anything that we could immediately start working on and get under a contract, that's what we started doing the first week that I got on the job. The contracting is one avenue with how we can address hazard trees along the fences as well as fence replacement. Okay, so that's what I'm initially talking about here. So Rio de la Casa is the first priority allotment. Capulina is our second priority allotment for contracting. And then San Jose and Solitario become 2 and 4 after that. That's just this year. We have it planned out for future years, but we have a big landscape here. The other tool besides contracting out the work to do hazard tree and fence replacement is utilizing our own crews. And so we're going to start our crews down here in the south. This country happens to, because of snow conditions, topography, that kind of stuff, it'll open up quicker than the ground to the north. And so our crews are going to start in the San Luis allotment on the southern end of the fire and start working their way up the Pecos drainage side of the allotments here, working on boundary fences, hazard tree removal, that kind of stuff. The third option that is opened up to us is there's new technology about virtual fencing. It uses radio towers and collars on the cattle and allows the ranchers to get into an allotment without necessarily the best infrastructure, because you can actually pre-program locations, and it's pretty cool stuff. So what we've done there is we're focusing those folks in the interior, the middle of this fire area is where we're going to start doing virtual fencing for this year. I also chose those because in order to work with virtual fencing, you actually have to go out and train the cattle. It's kind of like an electric dog, or called an electric fence for a dog, right? You have to train it before it just starts running and zapping itself, kind of thing. So in these 4 allotments, there's only 4 permittees, and so it makes it easier for the contractor, makes it easier to try and train rather than being up here trying to get 7 people to coordinate and train all. We're working with the permittees here. They are actually pretty excited about the technology and giving it a shot. And we're actually very thankful. We're working with the local Soil and Water Conservation District as a partner. They're helping us with the implementation of these things. So we're really appreciative of all the partnerships that we're experiencing and working with here. So that's just the simple range infrastructure. We've also been working with NMACD, who is helping us do assessments within the allotment that give us a picture of the water systems within the allotments, okay? So again, the focus there, why range? One, it was one of the easier things to pick up, but it's also range management, if done properly, is a really valuable tool to benefit the watershed. And if you don't do range management right, it can have really bad impacts on the watershed. And so those two kind of go hand in hand. So from range infrastructure, the next thing that we started laying out priorities and how we're going to attack is the road infrastructure within the Hermit's Peak Cow Canyon fire area. Okay, so on this map over here, it has the roads highlighted that are within the fire perimeter roughly. And over the last couple of weeks, we went out for scoping with our project. We're doing the NEPA analysis for this. And it's at a scale where it required us to do NEPA. What we're doing here is looking at the hazard trees along all the open motor vehicle use, all the open roads within the fire perimeter. So what we're going to do is in high severity areas, we're going to, or actually all along the corridor, we'll remove trees that are dead or dying or likely to die within 5 years or so along the road system within about 100 feet. That kind of can sway depending on how tall the trees are, how, whether it's uphill, downhill, that kind of stuff. But we want to get the road system open and safe, safe for people to get in there and access. Okay. So that's the primary focus of that. The secondary focus, though, is what we're going to remove in high severity areas. We're going to go in there and cut all these trees down. And we know that fuel wood is a major concern for the people in this community. We understand that a lot of people like to burn wood. That's how they heat their homes. Some folks, that's how they cook. And so the intent of all of the wood that'll be cut down in the hazard tree roads project is going to be made available for fuel wood. So fuel wood is a primary concern. The other thing we're going to do with regarding fuel wood within the burn scar area is that for this calendar year, 2023, I've gotten approval to start moving forward with issuing free use dead and down permits. That way, if you want to go in there and get some of these burnt trees and use it to replenish your fuel wood stock that you may have had 2 years worth of fuel wood or something, or 3 years and you lost that, this is your opportunity to get in here and work and get some of that and try and hopefully replenish that stock. But I do ask that you go in, get a permit from us. That way we can just help track it, help understand that we're meeting the needs. So the other thing related to roads is the flooding. So flooding, it was experienced after the fire. Most of these roads have some sort of flood damage, whether it's in the drainage or not. Our priorities for both hazard tree, where we're going to start the contracting, and road maintenance is we're going to start with Johnson Mesa, this corridor in here. Then we go up to Walker Flats, and then Capuline, and then the Berea lookout area. Okay, those are our 4 priorities for how we have to start somewhere, right? There's a big landscape. And in these particular cases, that's just the way we identified the needs. There's already, just for a little background, there's already work scheduled to occur in Walker Flats and Capuline as a result of, it just wasn't able to get accomplished last year before the season closed. So that factored into the decision making of why Johnson Mesa is our priority. Okay, so moving on from.
Can I ask a question? It has to do with the Forest Service credibility. A lot of people here don't trust you very much anymore. And to that end, I would like to hear what criteria you guys use to light this fire. Maybe we'll be able to understand what you're talking
We'll
about.
entertain a question after his presentation. Thank you.
I don't know if I can bear it much longer.
I'll be honest, I wasn't around when this fire started and what the criteria were. So I
Somebody
can't,
knows, right?
yeah, somebody knows, but I can't address that right now. I understand.
Thank you.
Speaking of the resources that are affected, Ernesto and I are trustees of the land grant. And we've got over 1,000 families that live in that whole area. You know, you're talking about roads and trees. What about the people? Those people, they don't have warranty deeds. And they go up to FEMA. FEMA tells them, well, how do we know it's your house? They can't show it because they don't have a paperwork. What is the Forest Service doing to help these people out with the flooding conditions on their property? I myself had flooding conditions, and Ernesto did too. And all these people that we represent are hurting. It's over a year now, and they're not getting anywhere. They're told, if you go down the hall, SBA will give you a loan. They can't, what collateral? They don't have papers for their homes. In fact, if the fire didn't burn them, they didn't have them because they didn't have a deed. So we can talk till we're blue in the face about those physical resources. What about the human resources?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't have a good answer for that one either. The human resources is by far the hardest part about having an incident like this. Yeah, we had an incident and it impacted people. And it sucks.
How much did you have to take into consideration the people who live in that area that physically told these people, don't light that fire, the wind conditions are bad? That was the biggest mistake they made. But these people live there. They know what the weather's like. They know what the wind conditions are. And like with the whole FEMA thing, I had no help with FEMA at all whatsoever because they don't understand the culture that we have here. Like you said, you know, one family can live on 50 acres and grandma lives in this house and dad lives in that house and Tia Lola lives in that house, but that's just how it is.
So one of the things I just want to address, I think that's relevant to the claims office and some of our work, is that we have heard through the public engagement we had about some of these issues that you're addressing in terms of people being able to have deeds to their land, probate issues, and other things that have been impacting the ability to get assistance. And I just wanted to let you know that as we're designing this claims process, that's something that we're taking into account. There are other ways for us to prove ownership of property other than deeds and things like that. And so I just wanted to just say that these are some of the things that, based on what has happened, we're trying to take and make sure that we're understanding those issues. So as we're building out the claims process as a compensation, that we're accounting for some of those things.
I will die on a hill. This fire was not an accident. It was not an accident. They knew that the winds were blowing in the 70s that day and they did it anyway. I don't know how many people will agree or disagree with me, but spring is back. Please don't light it otherwise.
Yeah, so regarding our plans for prescribed burning, obviously this year we're not gonna, on this district, we're not gonna be burning.
I hope not.
As far as prescribed burns go.
Thank you.
It goes back to his comment that there's a lot of this impacted people, right? You all need time to heal. The landscape needs time to heal. The Forest Service, we have to take time to heal. And we went through a prescribed burn review. We have some recommendations on how we can improve. And we will start implementing those in the future, but not right now. But I can tell you as somebody who's been in the Forest Service, worked in fire adapted ecosystems for a long time, this landscape is a fire adapted ecosystem. It needs fire on it in order to be healthy. Now the question's when and how and where, right? And those are things that we're working on to get better at.
That was true in the caveman days, but I don't know about today. People have property and stuff out here.
It's true today.
It's still true today. One second, please. I want to make one comment before I let you address or ask your question. The thing I want to bring up here is, if you look at this map over here, this is our burn severity map, right? And as you know, just looking at the hillside, there's some areas that had high severity burns. They're just snags, right? If a fire, do you not agree with that?
I don't really even understand it. Say
Okay,
again.
so these areas here on the map, they're high severity. What I mean by snags is you have dead standing trees in these areas.
But what about a piece of property that's been manicured to a high degree for 50 years by 2 generations of people? That fire got put out on our property, but not before it damaged every single tree on the 240 acres on there.
Yeah, so what I'm getting at isn't related to that. It's that now fire management in this landscape has now changed. Okay? When you look at these snag patches is what I'm gonna call them, where you have high severity, if we were to get a lightning strike in there, I now have a lot of concerns with trying to put people and go direct on a lightning, on a fire that's in one of these snag patches. That's a very high safety hazard.
I believe that's a specious argument.
I'm just giving you fair warning.
I know.
What I'm getting
I
at.
didn't get any fair warning about anything. Nobody even told us we were gonna light this fire.
We've given you the opportunity to voice out several times. If you can just bear with us and we'll get other people's questions answered. Thank you.
Let him finish his presentation.
Thank you. What I was getting at with the snag and fire management in the future is I have no doubt people are scared of the smoke and when you see it, and we will try and do the best we can when it comes to communication and outreach and all of that stuff, but we now have a big health and safety hazard that we have to factor in our fire response. And that's not just on Forest Service. 60% of this fire, as you all know, is on private land. And so the health and safety of firefighters and our first responders is going to be key moving forward. And I just want to give you a fair warning that because of this, now we have to start looking at those things differently. You have to be more thoughtful. You might have, depending on what resources you have, you may be able to attack it with air and, deal with it straight off. If you don't have those resources, you may have to look at a bigger box. So, can I finish the presentation? Do you want to interrupt?
I want to interrupt. I want to interrupt, because I think this is a real issue.
That's fine.
Rather than, who said roads and whatever.
First of all, you should know this. There's an 85-page report put out by Forest Service, which reviewed specifically looking toward Los Spencer. And there's many things that came out of that report that I think I reviewed it over the weekend. There'll be an article coming out on Friday. A lot of things came out in that report, one of which, and it was kind of a repeat theme, is the failure to coordinate with local resources. I remember I could not find it. Interestingly enough, when I tried to go back to the original Facebook post saying that you were going to do the Los Defenses burn, I remember clearly, and I'd like to know if other people do, there were many local comments saying do not burn. I saw no response. You go back to that at this point, and when you get to mid-May, the page crashes. I can't go back to it. But there are other instances where In my opinion, I'll state this strongly, and I was a volunteer firefighter for over 12 years, former assistant chief of Sapio Rociata. In my opinion, in typical years, there is no reason to burn once the spring winds start. That is asking for disaster, which we had. The other thing that I want to make note, because I want to repeat the theme of listen to your local people. Because one of the things mentioned in that report is that you need to review reality and not just base your decisions on policies and thoughts. And I think a lot of what contributed to the fire, when the planning was done, first of all, the planning was outdated by the time they actually did the fire, by the time they actually did the burn. That's been annotated in that report. But to listen to your local people who know the weather patterns, who know the land. So, say for example, there was a recommendation before the fire that there needed to be water sources present. And they recommended tenders and drop tanks. There were none present. Las Despensas, the closest fire district, is Sapio Rociata San Ignacio, which has ready resources for tenders and for drop tanks. We were never called to provide that assistance, even after the fire became a hazard.
Thank you, Kate.
Read that report.
I read the report, and I just have one question and one concern to convey.
I was almost done.
Okay, go ahead and finish your presentation and we'll get to it.
Yeah, she's listening to the
Thank
people now and recording the presentation.
Yeah, it is. Go ahead. Okay. Thank you, Kate.
I'll give you credit though, you have a thick skin.
Thank
Didn't
you.
show up.
You've been stuck with a really lousy assignment. Are you the only Forest Service employee in the room?
No.
Several?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Back this guy up because this is really hard what he's doing because we're angry. So that was my question. And now my concern is that I read the report that Kate is talking about. And nowhere did I read, please tell me if it's there, the location that you chose for the fire. And the reason that that is a concern is because as soon as the Southwest Incident Management Team got here in April to help us with this out of control fire, one of the first things they said at one of the first public meetings was the location chosen, this is almost a direct quote and it's on video, the location chosen for this prescribed burn could not be fought from air or ground. They said that several times. I expected that to be in your report when you analyzed what you did right, what you did wrong. Nowhere could I find in that report location as an issue. You've gotta get that down in writing, get that across the board to all the employees and never let that happen again. The second thing is the Cerro Grande fire, which is also an out of control prescribed burn. After that fire happened, a plane went up and mapped the plume of the smoke from Cerro Grande, mapped the entire plume through New Mexico, then went back and mapped all the standing dead trees that we now have, and it's a perfect match. So there's a chance that some of those standing trees that you're talking about that we need to get rid of could have potentially been killed from the Cerro Grande fire. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. What you both bring up are lessons learned, and we take those seriously. I take them seriously. I have no doubt it factors into my decision making. One of the things that came out of the National Prescribed Fire Review is a change. It gets it her comment back there. I don't know your name, but Kate. Is that what we call contingency resources? That's the water supply that she's talking about, those tenders, that kind of stuff. What we used to do under prescribed burn plans is say, I just identify what our contingency resources were. But now there's a requirement that those contingency resources have to be within 30 minutes. And that takes a lot more coordination with what that resource is. It sometimes means that it has to be on site if it's coming from an hour away, that kind of stuff. So we're trying to get better. Because whether you like it or not, this landscape, it's gonna have fire on it, and it needs it in order to be healthy. We have to figure out how to work with those two things, because the people are equally as important. So to wrap up what I was sharing, as you get, one of the biggest things that I want to share leaving here is you can tell there's a lot of emotion behind this, right? And one of the things, I've been through disasters myself, tornadoes, fires. One of the things, whether it's right or wrong, it's kind of just a human nature thing, I need to get out there and see what it looks like, right? My parents' house that burned down in 2013 in a wildfire. The first thing they wanted to do was just get back out there and see what was left, how bad the damage was, right? And so I'm taking that into consideration as we move into this field season. So as the snows melt, the roads dry out, I have every intention, if I can, to open this area back up, even though there are known hazards there. Because I want you all to have the opportunity to be able to get out and look at this landscape and see it. There are some places, because the roads, we will not be able to get to in a timely manner in order to do the maintenance. Some of those roads will have damage, so you won't be able to get everywhere. I could keep the forest closed until we fixed everything, but I don't think that's beneficial to you all. Okay, I would like you to give you the opportunity to be able to get out and see this landscape, see what it looks like, and be a part of it as it heals. Okay, because I can tell you, I went out yesterday for a drive. There's already grasses out in a lot of places. Where there's gamble oak that burned, it's already sprouting and it's a foot tall or so. The land itself is starting to heal. You were talking about Mother Nature, right? Mother Nature's gonna do its thing. And so I want to give you an opportunity to be a part of that as time moves forward. When monsoon season comes around, though, my recommendation will be we need to close this area back down for flooding. And it's just without the vegetation on it that was there before, it no longer has that sponge. So water hits the ground and it moves. It's going to move, as you experienced last year, it moves a lot faster than it ever has before. And so having this area open to the public during monsoon season, that's just something that I wouldn't recommend anybody being out there, right? I know you're all responsible for your own health and safety and well-being, but I have a certain bit of that responsibility too. So I'm taking a risk, but by trying to open this area back up for the field season and for as long as we can, but then for safety reasons, we'll shut it back down and then it'll open back up again after monsoon seasons. I just want you to know that I understand how important this landscape is, at least from my own experience, and it helps to get back out there and see it, right? If your only image of this is that it's dead and it's destroyed and it's gone, then I want you to get out here and see there's life coming back, okay? It looks different. It will not look the same as it did before. It won't look the same as it ever had in your lifetime again, okay? But that's the reality of living in a fire adapted ecosystem. And so with that, now I would actually like to open it up to entertain questions. Go ahead.
We're on a time frame. We've had these accommodations till 7 o'clock, so please make it brief.
Two very important questions. You notice that the community is very upset. So, we want to, let you know that we appreciate what you're doing. You're here, you work here when the fire happened. But I want to ask you, what are you going to do going forward to walk the talk? Right now, you're just talking. And you were forced to talk because people have been wanting to cut wood in the forest for decades, and they weren't allowed. They never had any meetings. You never had any meetings with us. The U.S. Forest Service never had any meetings with you, didn't inform us. So what I want to ask you, two important things. I've talked to Sean, and I've suggested, has the United States Forest Service considered creating a national forest corps similar to AmeriCorps? And I'm serious. I'm not just here talking. I'm gonna move this with the governor and the representatives. So we need that. We need that for our kids going forward. We need that kind of employment for good jobs going forward. And another thing, number two, the mayor and the city wanted to improve the runways at the airport. And there was even a suggestion of storing fire retardant at the Las Vegas airport. And I want to move forward with that too. So what do you think about those two items?
Yeah, thank you for that. No, so the last question about the improving the runway and that kind of stuff, that absolutely, that makes sense to me. As far as I know, the Forest Service has already come out and stated we support that type of effort. I don't know. I feel like you had two questions in the first one.
Forest Service Corps.
A Forest Service Corps.
Professional build up people to get in the forest.
I think it's a fantastic idea. I would love to see something like that happen. I've actually seen, in my career, I've seen better success where we partner with like the university and with New Mexico Highlands and stuff, integrating that, because if I bring students here and get them experience, right, but at the same time they're getting an education, then you're getting a double bang for your buck. It's not just a job, but you're increasing their knowledge. So I'd like, you don't mind, I'll just walk around. Sorry.
No, go ahead. We just need to wrap it up.
Copy that. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, I probably don't need this, but thanks for being here, Paul. I know this isn't easy. I manage my family ranch in the Gallinas Canyon. I have a question about hiring contractors. We're working with an arborist out of Santa Fe. He's got a team of lead loggers, he's got equipment and all that. But as of yet, he has not seen a public announcement out there for local contractors to do the type of work that you'll be hiring for. And, you know, he just went to a meeting a few weeks ago and FEMA said they hired a contractor out of Alaska and gave them $3 million. And so nobody has yet seen a public announcement for local contractors. And I'm just wondering if you can address that.
Yeah, no, contracting is extremely important. It's one of the biggest tools that we'll have to do this, and it's also a way for us to get back to locals. The hazard tree road stuff that I was talking about, that kind of work, we're actually partnering with the state and utilizing their contracting services. So that's one avenue that we're gonna use because hopefully they're registered with the state. The other thing that we're—
Forestry Department? Yeah.
Thank you. The other thing that we're doing is our contracts that we're talking about for range fences. We have statements in there that the contractor who successfully wins that award must try and hire local resources. They have to demonstrate to us that they've done that.
So, what's the deal with backburning and cutting the logs? What's the rule on that?
Cutting our logs.
Cutting logs.
Okay. Well, so if you had any damage that was related to the suppression activities, so I'm assuming that's where his comment on cutting the logs comes from, let us know, and we will work to still fix. We still have the opportunity to fix suppression-related repairs. So if you had something like a lock cut, or still have a dozer line or something like that that still needs rehabilitation, let us know. We'll work through that process. The wood that was burned.
Did that cover over here?
Are you, I guess what we, so help me understand more. What do you want to do with the wood?
So we were backburning, but we had a lot to do. And now we have all the ash going into the water school. So
Yeah, so his comment was he had some background done and there's ash. There's a lot of different things that are gonna occur related to recovery in that scenario. If you're looking to salvage the wood, the opportunity to do that is now before the wood starts to deteriorate. You could do contour farming if you need to, it's private land, there's a lot of.
Cutting the lot. What's the rules on cutting the lot?
I'll let Herbert answer that one.
The New Mexico Forest Conservation Act in the State Forestry's authority is fire suppression and timber harvest regulations. And so under the fire suppression, there is authority to access the fire through private land. And there were cases where landowners did not allow access, and so the fire would burn through freely, and then they would put it on the next property. But when there's nobody there to give the permission or not, they cut the locks to get access, or they cut fences. So there was a lot of that. There was over 600 miles of those who run on this fire. So there was a lot of fences cut.
We have one comment over here, Paul.
Yes, somewhere around.
Go ahead.
My question has to do with water quality. We've talked about a lot of things, and you know the importance of water quality for Las Vegas. Not all of us live in Las Vegas.
Right.
But water quality is a big issue in our streams and wells. Is anybody going to address those?
I was only prepared to speak about what's happening in Las Vegas. I don't know what the county commission is working on or anything like that. I apologize. I wish I had more answers for you. Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody. We're right up on time. Thank you to New Mexico Highlands University. Thank you to FEMA, the U.S. Forest Service. Thank you to the City of Las Vegas. In the back, there's a table with community information regarding flooding, flood insurance, how to prepare for the next disaster. Please stop by on your way out. And once again, I thank everyone for being here. Thank you.